Today's episode of The Real Deal with Damian Adams is brought to you by the 3pointconversion.com. Now, the 3-Point Conversion is the best sports media company out there. If you want fast updates on football, basketball, boxing, hockey, NASCAR, soccer, any sport, I'm talking about any sport anywhere. Spades, we was at your Uncle Nook Nook's tournament last week covering it. We everywhere, baby. So make sure you follow the 3-Point Conversion on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and check out the website, the3pointconversion.com. It's where fans' opinions matter. There will be cursing on this episode. It is explicit, so parental discretion is advised. What's up, motherfuckers? Thank you for listening to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. This is real motherfucking sports talk for the real motherfucking sports fan. And I appreciate all you real motherfuckers for listening today. You might be like, dang, why is Damian being so vulgar right now? Why is it I'm not used to this vulgarness that's coming out of his voice right now? It's because it's a bonus episode. And for you guys who have been listening for a while on bonus episodes, get a little crazy, and this time of the year it's a little slower. So I have the opportunity to do a bonus episode. And before I introduce my guest, let me go down a normal spill. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you. I appreciate you. Please go ahead and give us that 5-star rating. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. That 5-star rating and review will definitely be appreciated. If you have the Apple Podcast app, it's real easy. Click on it. Review. Help a brother out. It's absolutely free. If you're listening on the 3-Point Conversion station on Spreaker Radio, please give us your feedback on there as well, because the 3-Point Conversion station is where fans' opinions matter. So please go ahead and give your feedback on both of those platforms. I would really appreciate it, and I thank you for listening. And of course, for a bonus episode, I had to bring back some of my old friends. These guys are family. They've both been on the show several times. I've been on their show several times, called in. I'm talking about Kelly and Rashawn from the Red Zone Live. How you doing today, Kelly?
I am doing fantastic. I am so excited. I get another show where I get to say motherfucker a bunch of times. Nothing is better than that.
Definitely. How you doing there, Rashawn?
Dang, I'm doing motherfucking well, brother.
Definitely. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. Now let's start with you, Kelly. Where can people find you on social media, and where can they listen to the show?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Facebook at KELLIERUTTAR. And then, of course, you can find the show on Twitter at The Red Zone Live. We've got the Facebook page, The Red Zone Live. We are live every Friday night from 7 to 9 p.m., bringing sexy back to sports. And we say motherfucker on our show a few times, too, but you can check us out. We do sports, politics, pop culture. We have a lot of fun, uncensored, unscripted, live.
Yes, I ditto that, okay? Last time I was on the show, Last time Kelly was on the show, I struggled with ditto. I didn't know where to say ditto, how you say it. I think I got it correct now. Ditto. I feel the same way about that. Rashawn, where can they find you on social media, brother?
Well, they can catch me on Twitter at BabyBlack1977. That's my Twitter page, and on Facebook, Rashawn, RASHAN, Reeves, REEZEN.
Yes, go ahead, follow this brother on Twitter. Very interesting follow. Anything happening in Philadelphia, he will let you know as soon as it happens. All right, definitely get your politics in there as well. He knows a little bit of everything. Now, the last time we did a bonus episode, I don't know if it was the last one, but it's been a while since we did a bonus episode. Definitely missed doing these. We did one not too long ago where we counted down the 5 luckiest motherfuckers in sports history. So I decided on this one, we should count down our 5 unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history. People really got a kick out of the last time we did this with the 5 luckiest. So I was like, we should bring it back. Now, I always like to pay homage to my favorite comedian of all time, Bernie Mac. May he rest in peace, the late great. And his favorite word was motherfucker. So, of course, you're going to hear the word motherfucker a lot. Other curse words as well. I'm very interested to hear who they have on their list. My list is pretty good. But, of course, as we always do on bonus episodes, you have to vote and let us know who had the best list of unlucky motherfuckers. Very excited. Of course, we're going to go ladies first. So, Kelly, let's start with you. Who do you have as your number 5 unluckiest motherfucker in sports history?
All right, well, this motherfucker is an unlucky motherfucker, but he's also a dumb motherfucker, and I had a lot of trouble kind of differentiating between unlucky motherfuckers and dumb motherfuckers. But this guy is definitely both, and that would be the disgraced bicycling phenom Lance Armstrong. And the reason why I say that he's an unlucky motherfucker is we have the fact that he had the whole ball cancer thing. I mean, this guy had boy ball cancer, you know, in his testicle, and not only was it in his testicles, but it also spread in his brain and his lungs and his abdomen. Like, he was going to die. That's pretty unlucky right there, that you get struck down with this kind of disease. It's pretty bad. I mean, he was very lucky that he didn't die, but the fact that he came down with this disease at all makes him a pretty unlucky motherfucker. Now, then we get into the whole doping scandal thing. And I know a lot of you guys are thinking, that's not an unlucky motherfucker, that's a dumb motherfucker. He was cheating, he was doing drugs. But you know what? In the world of bicycle racing, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but every single motherfucking last one of them is doping. There was a time, back when Lance Armstrong was winning all these races, there was less bicyclists that...
All right, we lost Kelly, so we're going to go ahead and get her back and get back to her unlucky motherfucker. All right, we had a little technical glitch there. I think the phone gods was hearing us have too much fun, but I do have Kelly and Rashawn back on the line, and Kelly was talking about Lance Armstrong and how he wasn't the only one doping. You go ahead and continue.
It's true. If you have never researched the doping in the bicycle racing sport, I mean, these guys are so crazy when it comes to their doping. You know what they do besides just the performance-enhancing drugs and the steroids and all that kind of thing? Like, sometimes they sneak off on the side of the race and they give themselves self-blood transfusions just to get more oxygen in the blood. Like, you know, they pull over, they pull out a pint of blood, and then they put another pint of blood back in just so they can have more oxygen so they can compete better. Like, this is the most crooked sport in the entire world, is bicycle racing. So, Lance Armstrong, of course, dumb motherfucker for doing it in the first place, but unlucky motherfucker because he got caught and then he got ratted out as the ringleader. And then he was double unlucky in the fact that he had to pay the government of the United States $5 million in a lawsuit because of some whistleblower policy thing. And then, not to mention, the only celebrity he could find to date him was Sheryl Crow. And, like, she is an ugly motherfucker, so he was an unlucky motherfucker that he had to date her ugly ass. So, Lance Armstrong, dumb motherfucker, but unlucky motherfucker number 5 on my list.
Wow, that's a really good pick. I forgot how unlucky Lance Armstrong was. That's a really good pick. And like you said, some of it he brought on himself, but of course not the cancer. Like, that's some unlucky shit right there. Especially for like to start in that area. Like, that's extremely unlucky. And that's the thing for a man, whenever you see someone get kicked there, you feel it. So the fact that he had cancer there just made my whole stomach hurt just now. That's some unlucky shit. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
I think that's a good pick, but I wouldn't say dating Sheryl Crow was unlucky. I thought Sheryl Crow was sexy. I don't know. There's something about her. I just always thought she was sexy.
You know, sometimes we got different tastes. We see here that, you know, sexy is an eye of the beholder. So we all have different tastes sometimes. Now, Rashawn, who do you have as your number 5 unluckiest motherfucker in sports history?
Well, I'm going to go tennis. I don't think y'all thought I was going to go tennis. I'm going to go tennis. I'm going to show my sports knowledge in tennis. I'm going to go Andy Roddick. He is probably the unluckiest motherfucker in American tennis history. Andy Roddick had a promising career going back to like 2001, 2002. Won the U.S. Open in 2003. Then here comes a guy named Roger Federer, who shut every damn thing down. Andy Roddick ain't win shit after that. You know, not only did Roger Federer come up, then it was Rafael Nadal, then Novak Djokovic, then Andy Murray, none of whom Andy Roddick could not beat. He was billed as the great American hope in tennis, and he ended up being a dud. So Andy Roddick, I say, is one of the unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history, not just in tennis history, in sports history. Because Andy Roddick was a very good player. He had a killer serve that really nobody could touch. It's just that once you got past the serve, you could beat him. You know what I mean? You could beat him. And you know, for a long time, America was pulling for Andy Roddick. And then all of a sudden, we just jumped off the bandwagon and we just adopted Roger Federer as our token tennis player. So Andy Roddick is the most unluckiest motherfucker, I think, in one of the most unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history.
That's a very good pick. I was a big Andy Roddick fan. Like, for people who may not know, basketball, football, and boxing are my major sports that I follow. But tennis is the one for me that really had me there. Like, tennis, I could watch all day. I love when there's a big rally going on. And Andy Roddick was one of those guys that I really rooted for. I used to have tennis games like Top Spin on Xbox, and I used to pick Andy Roddick all the time. And like you said, Andy Roddick was the man for like 2 seconds. And then that bad man that you mentioned came across. And that was it. It was over. You know, he was basically Roger Federer is the Pete Sampras of our time. Pete Sampras dominated the era before. Andy Roddick came in for like 2 seconds, and then here came Nadal and Federer. So I definitely agree with you there that he was unlucky in the time that he came in. How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
Well, I mean, great minds must think alike. Not my mind, because my mind is even greater than just a great mind. But whenever we do these kind of like countdown shows, I always like bounce it off of Ryan, my boyfriend. And that was one of the names that he threw out there. And I was all like, yeah, I've already got somebody else from tennis on my list, so I'm not going to go there, but that's a good pick. So, yeah, great minds think alike. Rashawn and Ryan, the 2 men in my list.
That's what I'm talking about, Ryan.
All right, so I do like that pick a lot. 2 good picks to start it off. For my number 5, I'm going to go basketball. Now, I'm a big fan of this guy. This guy is the guy who I've seen in person the most growing up in New Orleans. I'm talking about the point guard, Chris Paul. Now, you may ask and say, how can Chris Paul be unlucky? He's a Hall of Fame point guard. He's probably going to get a big bag of money this offseason. How can this guy be unlucky? It's because this guy, every time there's a playoff series, basically every time, either he gets hurt or one of his teammates that he really depends on gets hurt. So let's go back through the history. 2009. This is back when he was with the New Orleans Hornets. They had a promising young team. Just came off of 2008 where he was second in MVP voting, and they made the second seed in the Western Conference and lost to the Spurs in the second round. I still heard about that series as I can remember it so vividly. But in 2009, Tyson Chandler was starting to come into his own as this great defensive force and helped Dallas get a championship a few years later. Tyson Chandler gets hurt at the end of the regular season in 2009, misses 15 of the last 16 games. And then, after that, New Orleans is never able to get their rhythm. They get knocked out in the first round by the Nuggets and lose one of those games by 50 points. You know why I remember that game? Because I was at that motherfucking game where we lost by 50 motherfucking points. Don't remind me of that. That's 2009. All right, so, of course, a few years later, he goes to the Clippers, right? 2013, Blake Griffin. He sustains an ankle injury ahead of Game 5 against Memphis when they're up. And then they go around and lose that series because Blake Griffin gets hurt. 2015, Chris Paul plays all 82 games of the regular season. Looks the healthiest he's ever been. And then in Game 7 against the Spurs, hurts his hamstring. They managed to win that game, which is underrated, the fact that he beat the Spurs on a Game 7 game winner. That was a great day in sports. It was the same day as Kentucky Derby and the day that Mayweather fought Pacquiao. I was in Vegas for all of this. Awesome day in sports. But he hurts his hamstring, which forces him to miss 2 games of the next series against the Rockets. He comes back in that series to ball out, but then they collapse and have one of the biggest failures and collapses in sports history and lose to the Rockets. And Chris Paul still has that big cloud over his career of not making it out the second round. 2016, they're playing against the Blazers in the first round. Look like they're going to win the series. Game 4, what happens? Chris Paul breaks his hand. They go ahead and lose that series. And Austin Rivers somehow became a star of that series because he played with a black eye and like 18 stitches in his eye and put in Chris Paul's place. But it wasn't enough for them to win. Another loss due to injury. 2017, Blake Griffin suffers not a regular broken foot. Like he broke a plate in his foot, which is hard to do. Breaks a plate in his foot. Of course, it makes him miss the rest of the series. They lose in 7 to Utah. This year, Chris Paul finally gets past the first 2 rounds. Goes to Houston. Him and James Harden doing their thing. He gets to the conference finals. They have Golden State on the ropes. And he gets hurt at the end of Game 5. Of course, Houston goes on to lose that series. Chris Paul, man. I feel like he's definitely up there when you talk about unlucky motherfuckers in sports history. How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
Well, I mean, when you first said it, I was thinking to myself, what? How can you call Chris Paul an unlucky motherfucker? But then listening to you explain it, all right, I'll give it to you. He is an unlucky motherfucker. And then now he's extra unlucky because he's got my motherfucker, Damian Adams, super pissed off at him.
Yes, I was really mad that we went to that game in 2009 for the playoffs and they lost by 50 points. That's just, yeah, it still burns me a little bit. But looks like we lost. All right. So, is Rashawn still there? Nope, he is not. So, we'll take a quick break, get Rashawn back on the line, and then we'll continue with our number 4s. So, we had a great opening to our unlucky motherfuckers with 3 great picks at number 5. So, I'm definitely looking forward to who we have at number 4 right here. Kelly, who is your number 4 unluckiest motherfucker in sports history?
All right, my number 4 unlucky motherfucker in sports history is going to be Tiki Barber. And the reason why he is an unlucky motherfucker is, first of all, he's a twin. So he had to go through his entire life looking like some other motherfucker. And when it comes to being drafted in the NFL, of course, the twin was lucky to go to Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a weak-ass conference, and poor Tiki Barber had to go play for the New York Giants in the NFC East. And if you want to play in the NFC East, the only team worth mentioning is the Philadelphia Eagles, so it's New York Giants, and they suck. And then Tiki Barber had to carry that team. I mean, people are going to say that he was a lucky motherfucker because he beat all these team records, greatest ever rusher, blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, he was unlucky that he played for a shit team. And then he opened his mouth and started saying how it was a shit team, how Eli Manning was never going to be a good quarterback, how Tom Coughlin was a terrible coach. And he's all like, you know what? Fuck you motherfuckers, I'm going to retire. So he retires, and then the very next year, Eli Manning defied all the odds and won a Super Bowl. So poor Tiki Barber still could have been in the prime of his career and denied himself a Super Bowl ring. Meanwhile, his twin brother, who was older by, I think it was like 7 minutes or something like that, so he had to go through life as the younger brother, probably gave him a little bit of a complex being the younger twin there. His younger brother had a Super Bowl ring for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a game that they never should have even got to because the Philadelphia Eagles should have beaten their ass in the last game at the Vet. Rest in peace, Veterans Stadium. We will never forget you. But yeah, Rondé didn't even deserve that ring, so older twin brothers got a ring. Tiki doesn't have a ring. And then Tiki didn't listen to the words of advice from the ever-wise Kanye West and did not have his ex-wife sign a prenuptial agreement, and she wiped that unlucky motherfucker's ass all over the floor. Took all his money, and he's all like, fuck, I'm not going to be able to get my money back unless I come play football. So in 2011, he tried to unretire and come back, and nobody wanted him because they knew what an unlucky motherfucker he was. So that is why Tiki Barber, my number 4 unlucky motherfucker.
That's a very good pick. Tiki Barber not only has been unlucky on the field, you mentioned off the field, also in the booth. Like, he tried to do the little thing where he was commentating for NBC. That didn't work out. I forgot the drama behind that, but that didn't work out either. So he's definitely been an unlucky motherfucker. While his brother is thriving post-career. And I saw Tiki Barber was like hosting a Netflix show, Ultimate Beastmaster. Like, that's how far it's gotten for Tiki Barber. So yeah, he's been an unlucky motherfucker. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
I think it's a great pick. I think she left out the biggest reason why he's an unlucky motherfucker, because the year he retired was the year that the Giants beat the Patriots, the undefeated Patriots, in the Super Bowl. That very next year.
That's true. You didn't hear Rashawn? Well, I didn't see the Patriots, but I said they won a Super Bowl.
You know, I'm sorry, sister. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. I was biting my nails, and I may have been biting them a little bit too loudly. I'm sorry, but I think that was a good pick for that aspect. But as far as his wife, you know what I mean? He deserves every goddamn thing he got with her. You see what I'm saying? He was cheating on his wife. You know, it was so much stuff that was going on between him and his wife that eventually came out that made him look like an asshole. You know? You know what I mean? So I agree with you on a unlucky part as far as his playing career, but as far as his personal life, he was stupid. That was more just stupid than unlucky. His wife should have took everything. His wife should have took the name, his rights to the name Tiki. You know what I mean? That's how messed up. He messed her up. You see what I'm saying? First of all, a man shouldn't be named Tiki any goddamn way. You know? That's unlucky in itself. So, Carol, that's a good one.
I agree. A man should not be called Tiki. All right, so you sound like something that goes into a drink while you at the beach. Tiki, like what are you doing?
I like the name Tiki, but hey.
Oh God!
Like, I think Tiki goes well with women. Like, there's an actress named Tiki Sumter who's pretty good looking. I think her name goes well with her.
Oh, yeah.
But Tiki Barber, I don't think goes well. But now it's time for us to do number 4 from Rashawn. Who is your number 4 unluckiest motherfucking sports history?
Well, unfortunately, this motherfucker is definitely unlucky. I'm talking about Vincent Edward Jackson. Some of us may know him as Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was probably the greatest athlete of our generation. You know, now, this is before LeBron. And I'm a little bit older than you, Damien. I know you're a millennial, so LeBron is probably the greatest athlete of your generation. But, you know, in my generation, Bo Jackson was it, even though he had like a 4 or 5 year career. You know what I mean? Actually, he played baseball from 86 to 1994. You know what I mean? On and off. But I consider him unlucky because he was going to be, I believe, the greatest running back of all time until he hurt his hip. After he hurt his hip, he tried a few comebacks, you know, but it never panned out for him. And now we talk about, he's just legendary. He's one of those people that we talk about as a folk hero, like, you know, he's like got this urban legend type of thing, you know what I mean? Well, you think this guy great, you should have seen Bo Jackson. And everything that you say about Bo Jackson was true. He was the fastest. He was the strongest. He was the most athletic. He was everything wrapped in one. And it's unfortunate that a hip injury derailed his career. This man had 141 home runs. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about playing baseball on and off. Not fully. He never was a full-time baseball player. I think in 1994 when he tried to make his comeback after he retired from football, you know, he tried to make a comeback and he played a whole year, but he was in and out of the lineup. You know what I mean? He wasn't considered Bo Jackson before. You know, so I think that Bo Jackson, considering his legacy after he injured himself, you know, him becoming a folk hero, an urban legend, I think that, you know, we didn't get a chance to see the greatness, the full greatness of a Bo Jackson. So I consider Bo Jackson my number 4 unluckiest motherfucker.
That's a very good pick. Bo Jackson is someone who, like you said, just a legend now. Like the things you hear about Bo Jackson, even before he was in college, you would hear stories about how he threw a stick and killed a pig. like crazy stuff that you would hear about Bo Jackson, how he threw a rock from 50 yards away through a door. Like, it was the craziest stuff you would hear about Bo Jackson, man. He definitely is a legend.
Yeah, right.
And the way his hip got hurt was just freakish. That's just very unlucky, the way he hurt his hip. And some people think he was too strong. And that's why he hurt his hip. Like, most people, when they get tackled like that, would have just fell. But he was trying to push through that tackle, and when he put his leg into the ground and pushed through, that's when the hip popped out. To be that strong to where you pop your hip out of place trying to break a tackle is unlucky. So I think that's a very good pick. How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
I mean, I like it. Whenever I think about Bo Jackson, it always pops into my head those commercials that he used to be on, where he'd be all like, you know, Bo knows football, Bo knows baseball, Bo knows basketball, and apparently also Bo knows being an unlucky motherfucker. That's a great thing.
Yes, definitely. Now, for my number 4, I have a gigantic tie between a lot of people. But when I start listing off these people, you're going to notice what they have in common. Tim Couch, Ty Detmer, Doug Peterson, Spurgeon Wynn, Kelly Holcomb, Jeff Garcia, Luke McCown, Trent Dilfer, Charlie Fry, Derek Anderson, Brady Quinn, Ken Dorsey, Brad Gurkowski, Colt McCoy, Jake Delhomme, Seneca Wallace, Brandon Whedon, Thad Lewis, Jason Campbell, Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, Connor Shaw, Josh McCown, Austin Davis, Robert Griffin III, Cody Kessler, Deshaun Kaiser, and Kevin Hogan. Now, I know Kelly knows that list because she lived in that area for a while. And for sports fans, if you didn't catch on, that was all the starting quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns since 1999. All these motherfuckers are unlucky. There's no chance you had of winning for the Cleveland Browns if you came after 1999. Now, of course, the Cleveland Browns had a pretty decent history when they were the old Cleveland Browns before they became the Baltimore Ravens and moved. But after 1999, they've only had 2 winning seasons. In 2002, they went 9-7, lost in the wild card round of the playoffs. In 2007, they went 10-6 and didn't make the playoffs. How unlucky is that shit? And that list, man, and some of the people might say that list is just an untalented list, not unlucky. But I feel like if they went to a different place, maybe those guys would have had better luck. Some of those guys had luck other places, like Jeff Garcia, Jake Delhomme, Robert Griffin III. Those guys showed potential in other places, but once they got to the Browns, all that potential, all that good quarterback play was drained out of them by the unluckiness of the Cleveland Browns. So that's why at number 4, I have all the starting quarterbacks for the Cleveland Browns. Hopefully, my man Tyrod Taylor can change that this year. Baker Mayfield, if he comes in, I wish him the best of luck. Maybe they can change this. But for right now, at number 4 of the unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history, I have all the Cleveland Browns starting quarterbacks since 1999. How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
Well, on my original list, I actually was going to go with Baker Mayfield simply because he was going to be the next in the long list of Browns quarterbacks that were going to fail before their career even got started or after their career was already over in the case of a lot of the people on that list. So I'm glad I didn't go with him because your list definitely trumps Baker Mayfield. So hopefully maybe he can be the kid to break the curse. But yeah, that's it. I mean, the Cleveland Browns are an unlucky sports team full of unlucky motherfuckers, and it all stems from that quarterback position. They've gone through more quarterbacks in those almost 20 years than I've gone through pairs of underwear, I think.
Definitely. They've gone through a lot of quarterbacks. They've gone through more quarterbacks than Kardashians have black men. Like, that's how many quarterbacks they've gone through. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
I love that pick. I think you forgot me on that list. I think I went back for the goddamn Browns at some point. Jesus Christ. But listen, What can you say? It just seemed like you said, you named the list of quarterbacks that actually had success before they went to Cleveland. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden they became retarded from the neck up. You know what I mean? It's just unbelievable that franchise produces bad quarterbacks, and even when they get them, they become bad. You know what I mean? But I got hope for Tyrod Taylor. I think Tyrod Taylor is going to prove a lot of people wrong this year. You know, I think they got some players out there in Cleveland this year. So I don't know about Baker Mayfield being as unlucky, you know, as the rest of those guys. But that was a great pick, though, Daniel.
Thank you. We're off to a good start. Now it's time to get to the middle of the road. Time for our third pick in the top 5 unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history. Who do you have at number 3, Kelly?
Well, this guy, the beginning of his career was marked by him being an unlucky motherfucker, but I'm hoping that in time he can turn it around. But right now he does make the list as an unlucky motherfucker, and that would be offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil. And the reason for that is this kid had almost everything going for him. He was a football star in high school. He was a top guy in college. Now, his unlucky motherfuckerness starting when he was in college. There was a time when he was actually arrested for domestic violence. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that makes you a dumb motherfucker and an asshole motherfucker, not an unlucky motherfucker. But in this case, he was allegedly actually defending his mother from his asshole stepfather. And he ended up being the one to get arrested when his stepfather was actually the asshole. Allegedly, there's other stories that are putting on another way, but that's the story I like to believe. I like to believe poor, unlucky motherfucker Laramie Tunsil was defending his defenseless mother. And then, the night of the NFL draft, which should have been the biggest night of his career, his Twitter supposedly got hacked by the same stepfather, who was an asshole that was being his mother, and posted a video of him in the gas mask smoking marijuana while he was in college. And let's be honest, who wasn't in college and smoked a little bit of marijuana? I know I did. I know Rashawn did. I don't know about you, Damien. I'm not going to spill your secret. But I said more people than not have smoked a little bit of marijuana during their college days. And he just happened to be the unlucky motherfucker who got his Twitter hacked and got that video posted right before the NFL draft. It ended up costing him millions of dollars when he fell from a top 5 pick to a number 13 overall pick. He was lucky enough still to go in the first round, but that fall cost him a lot of money. But this was actually the second time his social media got hacked. The first time his Instagram account got hacked, and somebody leaked out text messages where he asked his coach from Ole Miss to lend him money so his mom could pay her electric bill. I mean, this poor kid just keeps trying to look out for his mom, and he keeps getting hit by these unlucky things. And you know what? He took the money, which did violate NCAA rules, and he did get in trouble for that too. So twice, this poor kid's future a little bit gets fucked over by people fucking around on his social media. So Laramie Tunsil, and then he gets drafted by the Miami Dolphins, which hasn't been a very good team for very many years, so it's a little bit unlucky that he fell so far and had to go to a team like that. But I'm hoping he can turn life around and he can go from being an unlucky motherfucker to a well-paid, well-played, long-lasting offensive line guy, because I do think he is talented. I think he's just an unlucky motherfucker.
That's a very good pick, especially when you think about what happened to him on draft night. Like you said, it's supposed to be the best night of his life, something that he never forgets in a good way. But now it's going to be something that he never forgets in a bad way because of his asshole stepfather. Man, that made me mad that night. I don't think that people should have been mad that he got caught smoking with a gas mask. If anything, it showed that he's efficient. All right? If you're going to be smoking, you may as well use a gas mask to make yourself as high as possible, quickly as possible. I think that showed his brilliance more than anything being dumb. All right? So people should have raised his draft stock, if anything, not made it go down. So I felt like people took that the wrong way. My man was smoking with a gas mask on, being very efficient, and keeping all the smoke to himself. Good for the environment. I thought it was all good, smoking with the gas mask. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
I love it. I love it. I love the way Kelly laid it out too. That was absolutely heartbreaking, and even though it was funny as hell because he looked like a Ghostbuster at first, and nobody knew who it was until he took the gas mask off. You know what, Damien? You are right. That is, I never done it before. But that is a hell of an idea. That is a hell of an idea. But you know what? I think him, because he was supposed to be like a top 5 pick that year. And I think he ended up falling 13, cost him a couple millions of dollars. But he did fall to Miami, so he ain't that lucky. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of lucky motherfuckers living in Miami just because it's Miami. But as far as anything else, Kev, I think the way you laid it out, that was brilliant. I mean, I didn't even think of him. And that is one of the most unluckiest things that happened, or probably, or argue, well, that was the best day of his life. You know what I mean? I just think it was crazy. So that was a great pick, Kel.
Definitely, I agree with that. And who is your number 3 unluckiest motherfucker in sports history, Rashawn?
Alright, I'm gonna go boxing, man, and this one hurt my heart, man. This one hurt my heart because he's a Philly native. I was watching a fight, and that damn Richard Steele, I'm talking about Mildred Taylor, when he fought Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. He was undefeated, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Mildred Taylor was an up-and-coming rising star in the boxing world. He was beating the hell out of Julio Cesar Chavez. That was Mildred Taylor's biggest fight. At the time, that was Julio Cesar Chavez's biggest fight, too. He was beating the hell out of him until the 12th round. The 12th round comes around. He was so far ahead on the scorecard, but Julio Cesar Chavez with that Mexican pride, and he's a great fighter. I'll never take anything away from him, but I think that he got away with a couple gift wins, you know what I mean? But that's neither here or there. But he drops Mildred Taylor. Mildred Taylor gets up, told the referee that he was fined numerous of times, and you know how the referee told the guy to walk to him? He did that. He stopped the fight over. Julio Cesar Chavez goes on to become a legend. Mildred Taylor, we see, walking around here in Philadelphia looking like a hobo. You know what I mean? That fight single-handedly ruined his career and ruined his life because he was never able to get over that. He ended up, using drugs, blowing a lot of his money. This is a guy that Philadelphia embraced as a legend. You know what I mean? Even after that fight, we wanted to see the rematch, even though he had the rematch, and I think he lost the rematch, but it was a couple years later. But that Richard Steele and that decision cost this man, I think, the rest of his life. I think the rest of his life. He stayed on a little bit too long in the boxing game. He wasn't relevant, but he took a lot of shots to the head. That saying about boxers, they get punch drunk. They talk a little slow. They do a lot of things slower than what they normally did. That's his condition now. I feel sorry for him, and I think that it was all based off of that decision that night of Mildred Taylor. So Richard Steele costing him that fight. So I say Mildred Taylor is one of the most unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history.
That's a very good pick. I remember watching, HBO used to have like these specials about great fights. I'm trying to remember the name of it. And I remember watching the episode about that fight and seeing the impact of that decision that it had on him and how he was never the same. He was never the same guy. He came into that fight as, like you said, undefeated guy. He was somebody who had the ability to be a smooth boxer, but wanted to brawl with you. And I think that's something that cost him that fight because he could have, from maybe the 8th, 9th round on, he could have got his De La Hoya on and ran around and won that fight easily. But he still wanted to be in the pocket fighting with this man who, like you said, with his Mexican pride and being a great fighter himself, was never going to give up. And in that 12th round, he finally caught up to him, and Mildred Taylor got up. 2 seconds left. 2 seconds. And Richard Steele stopped the fight. And 2 seconds, man, like you literally can only land 2 punches in those 2 seconds. You got to let him finish the fight at that point. You have to realize what the situation is, let him get that victory. And he may not have still have been not been the same after that fight because he took a lot of punishment those last few rounds and years after that. And you mentioned the rematch where he got beat. I believe it was third round knockout in the rematch because he definitely wasn't close to what he was in the first fight. But definitely, man, he's one of the unluckiest motherfuckers in history. Period. You know, not just sports, man. So that's a great pick. How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
I mean, I'm a casual boxing fan at best, so I'm not as familiar with the story as you guys are, but hearing Rashawn tell it, especially with a little bit of Philly slant there, I mean, definitely it makes him come out like an unlucky motherfucker. Poor guy, I'm going to go find him being a hobo on the street and give him 20 bucks.
Definitely. he definitely has gone through it in life. Like, he's a unlucky motherfucker, man. So
And Richard still gets booed for that. He still gets booed for that.
yeah, definitely. He's definitely, and that's the thing. Richard Steele is somebody who could be like an honorable mention unlucky motherfucker. 'Cause that one decision changed his legacy forever. Like, he's still a Hall of Fame referee, but he's remembered for that one decision. He had probably 50 championship fights and still remembered for that one bad decision he made. So he's definitely somebody who's honorable mention as far as unlucky sports motherfuckers. Now, for my number 3, he was unlucky from birth. Greg Oden came out of the womb looking like he was 147 years old. I truly believe that Greg Oden has Benjamin Button syndrome. And for you guys who may not be familiar with Benjamin Button syndrome, it means there's a movie called Benjamin Button where guy was born and he was older when he was younger, and as he got older in age, he actually got younger in his body and the way he looked. And I think that's what's happening with Greg Oden. Came out the womb looking super old, and his bones were never ready for NBA action. And because of that, he's always going to be known as the guy who got drafted ahead of Kevin Durant. He's going to be a trivia question for the rest of his life. Who's that guy who Portland drafted ahead of Kevin Durant, who's one of the greatest players of all time? Oh, that Greg Oden dude. He's going to be remembered like that forever. And coming out of high school and college, he was the man. He was ranked number 1 over Kevin Durant in high school, ranked number 1 over Kevin Durant coming into the draft. And they noticed that one of his legs is shorter than the other. And not like a centimeter shorter, like an inch, which makes a big difference. And that's the reason his knees are so jacked up. And he misses his whole first year. Whole first year gone, he had to have microfracture surgery on his leg, on his knee. Second year, he comes in, starts to show some potential. He had a few 2020 games. You see the greatness, why he got drafted number 1 overall. Bumps knees with Corey Maggette, fractured kneecap, out for the season. Has a few more surgeries on his knees, misses 3 more years. Comes back with Miami Heat for a little bit, gets a championship ring. He does have a championship ring, but pretty much missed that whole season as well. Played like 20 games. So he was on the NBA contract for 6 years, which means that he could have played 492 games. Only played 105. And there's a picture with him and LeBron James. Now, LeBron is older than Greg Oden. But there was a kid, young kid, who legitly thought Greg Oden was LeBron's dad. That's how old this motherfucker looks. People thought somebody actually thought he was LeBron James' dad. And it's something, if you don't watch sports, you see this guy who's taller than LeBron, who they can look kind of favorably to each other, and he looks like he's about 30 years older than LeBron. I can see you making that mistake. It's not something where I can get mad at you for doing that, especially if you're not a sports fan. So not only is he extremely injury prone and his promising career went down the toilet because of that, he also looks like he's 147 years old. And I believe when he's like 65, he's going to be dominating some rec league because that's when his bones are going to be ready because of the Benjamin Button syndrome. I'm telling you, when he's 65, he's dominating some rec league, and we're talking about it, don't forget this moment, all right? I told you guys he had the real Benjamin Button syndrome. But that's my number 3 unlucky motherfucker in sports history, Greg Oden, former number 1 overall pick for the Portland Trail Blazers in the 2007 NBA draft. How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
That's an awesome pick. Like, as soon as you said his name, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I completely forgot about that motherfucker. He is a very unlucky motherfucker. And then, like, I was trying, while you were talking, I was trying to pull up a recent picture of him, and I saw that he ended his basketball career playing in China. I mean, how bad do you have to be to get shipped off playing to China? That's an unlucky motherfucker right there.
Definitely. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
I mean, that's a great pick. You kind of stole my thunder. I wasn't going to go just Greg Oden. I was going to go Portland Trail Blazers because in 1984, something similar happened. You know what I mean? Like that. It wasn't Kevin Durant. It was Michael Jordan that they passed up on for a big man and Sam Bowie. You know what I mean? So I was going to kind of box that together. But that's all good. I got a backup. But that was an awesome pick. That was an awesome pick. And I was going to say, and like Kel said, great minds thinking like Damian, he was thinking like because I was going to say that he's unlucky because he looked like Bill Russell. At 17, he looked like Bill Russell, who always looked like an old man, even when he played with Boston. You know what I mean? But that was a great pick, Damian. I think, he can go down as one. I think he can go down as top 5 unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history. Seriously. And top 5 ugliest motherfuckers in sports history. He's just unlucky all the way around.
Definitely. Because to go back to that Portland thing, I thought about Sam Bowie, right? And then I started looking at Sam Bowie's career. Sam Bowie had a pretty decent career after Portland. Like, if you look at his stats, after Portland, he went to New Jersey and became a serviceable player. He was averaging 15 points a game, getting like 8-9 rebounds. So I definitely agree with your bonus pick of Portland just being unlucky when you think about Sam Bowie, Greg Oden, Brandon Roy. Like, they've just had some unlucky history. Bill Walton. Like Portland just had unlucky history, period, as a franchise. So that's a very good pick right there. So now it's time for us to move on to our number 2 unlucky motherfuckers in sports history. Who do you have at number 2, Kelly?
I am going to keep it with basketball, and my unlucky motherfucker number 2 is none other than the second son of Mr. Big Baller, and that would be LiAngelo Ball.
Oh, wow.
He was an unlucky motherfucker from birth because he's got LeVar Ball as his father, and it doesn't get much unluckier than that. And then, of course, older brother gets drafted by the Lakers, so you've got that to live up to, where, your older brother gets, actually drafted when you don't get drafted at all because you're just not that good. So, the bastard middle child of LeVar Ball. You've got an older brother that plays professional basketball. Then,
You still there, Kelly? Oh, we lost Kelly and Rashawn. This one moment, we'll go ahead and get them back. All right, we had a little technical difficulty there. Kelly joked that AT&T must hate the word motherfuckers. They keep cutting us off. But Kelly was talking about LiAngelo Ball as the number 2 unluckiest motherfucker in sports history.
And you know what? I think that me getting cut off there is a little bit of Russian collusion because I was going to mention our president in my next part of this. So LiAngelo Ball, overseas, playing in China, gets caught shoplifting. Now, okay, shoplifting makes you a dumb motherfucker, not an unlucky motherfucker. But if you're shoplifting from a Louis Vuitton store, let's be honest, it's not your first offense. Okay? You don't start your shoplifting career shoplifting from Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, that's crazy. You don't start your career there at Louis Vuitton. We had a little phone difficulty there, but I definitely agree with Kelly on that one. You don't start your career there. So let's get her back on the line. 1 second. All right, so we had a little phone difficulty there, but Kelly was going into how she doesn't believe LiAngelo was stealing for the first time when he did it in China at the Louis Vuitton store.
Okay, I mean, that's not where you start your shoplifting career. So he was an unlucky motherfucker. At the time he gets caught shoplifting, he's in China, where they have this whole send you to Chinese prison for 10 years. But then he had a little bit of luck because President Trump stepped in on his behalf to get him and his buddies out of Chinese prison Actually, they were on hotel arrest, but still, they could have gone to Chinese prison. So Trump steps in, but then he's an unlucky motherfucker because he incurred the wrath of Trump by failing to apologize in a way that the president found acceptable. So he got blasted on Twitter, which might not make him an unlucky motherfucker because it seems like anybody that does anything gets blasted by Trump on Twitter. But this is all just going to further deteriorate the reputation of LiAngelo Ball, so much so that between the shoplifting allegations, the fact that his brother never lived up to expectations, the fact that everyone is sick to death of looking at his father and nobody wants that guy anywhere near that team, poor little LiAngelo Ball does not get drafted. And he fails to live up to the potential of his brother, failed to live up to the expectations set for him by his father, probably is getting beat at home right now for being a failure, and this poor kid is going to commit suicide before he's 30 years old. So LiAngelo Ball, my number 2, unlucky motherfucker.
Yeah, he's definitely has some bad luck. I didn't think about him, but yeah, some bad luck, especially when you talk about LeVar Ball. That's the thing. I was trying to be like on the LeVar Ball train and support and be like, okay, I see what he's doing, you know, with the kids, and he got the big baller brand. But there's some stories come out. Like there's been a recent story that came out about him, where you know the wife, she had a stroke, unfortunately, right? And some of the things that he would say to try to, I guess, motivate her were very just not good, and made him look just very misogynistic. And you know, he's already had the episode where he, you know, told the lady from Fox to stay in her lane, which at first I was like, okay, you know, she's been criticizing him a lot. I could see why he reacted that way. But then when you combine it with the criticism of the female referee at the AAU games and what he told his wife, you're like, oh man, this gotta be crazy living with this guy. So I definitely agree, especially when you put it with the other stuff that happened with LiAngelo. You know, hopefully he still makes it out. He probably could still play overseas somewhere. He is good enough to probably, you know, play in China or maybe even make the Euro League. And then he can show that maybe he's good enough to be in the NBA or play in the G League this year. He might get an invite to that. But hopefully he can turn it around. I don't know if he's pro basketball player already. It's hard to tell. You're playing against Lithuanians who are 16 years old, so it's hard to know how good you truly are. So hopefully he can turn it around. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
I mean, I think he's unlucky. He's unlucky because of the route that Top chose, set for him. I think that I got a different feeling on LeVar Ball. I didn't hear the story about, you know, his parent, the way he treated his wife. You know, my only knock on LeVar Ball is, you know, him not letting his sons make that decision as far as college and, you know, anything else. It seemed like they robots, you know, but I do respect him as a father. You know what I mean? I think LiAngelo was just lazy. You know what I mean? I think he may not be bad for the NBA, you know, material now, but I think that he got NBA potential. He can shoot. I think he got, you know, some dribbling skills. I think he can do something in the NBA. If you can shoot, you can make it. You know what I mean? He got the height. It's just that he's not in shape. He's not in shape, but he is unlucky to have, you know, Lonzo ahead of him, and what's the other one? LaMelo behind him. You know, because LaMelo is going to make it to the NBA. That kid is a stud. He'd probably be the best out of the three. You know, so I think he's unlucky in that aspect. But, you know, that's a good pick. I didn't even think of that. You know what I mean? I didn't think of that, Cal. So Cal's always pulling some people out of the damn woodwork show. I didn't even think of him, you know. Seriously. Well, that's a good pick.
Nah, I definitely agree with that. So who do you have as your number 2 unluckiest motherfucking sports history, Rashawn?
Well, being as though I was going to select the Portland Trail Blazers, you know, but, you know, you went with Greg Harden, so, you know what I mean, I don't want to repeat that. You know, I'm going to go with Philly's own Carson Wentz. And Charles may disagree with me on that. But, you know, you think about this. This guy was drafted to win the first ever Super Bowl in probably the most football-crazed city in all of sports. He has an MVP-type season until he gets hurt. The backup quarterback comes in and took his 12-2 team to the Super Bowl, wins the Philadelphia. Nothing that happens after this will ever compare to that. Carson Wentz was drafted to be the first quarterback to do it. You know what I mean? He may be the second. But not only that, now, being as though he got hurt in December of 2017, he's trying to rush back to be the starter in the beginning of the season because I think internally he's afraid that if he don't play in week 1, Nick Foles may come in and continue his stretch of excellent play that he ended last year with the Super Bowl win. Ever from this point, from this moment on, Carson Wentz, for as long as Nick Foles is on this team, Carson Wentz is going to have that in the back of his mind that he has to play well one, and that he has to win the Super Bowl two. I think that is extremely unlucky. I think that's unlucky, and I think that's a crazy situation to be in. As much as I love Carson Wentz, and Tels, I know you love Carson Wentz, this can mess up his head, Joe. This can mess up his head, especially if he comes back too early, because he want to prove that he's healthy, and he want to prove that he can lead the team to the Super Bowl, and he may not even be healthy. So therefore, I'll pick number 2 as Carson Wentz is my, number 2 unluckiest person in sports.
Okay. I see how much you respect Philadelphians and how much you respect the Eagles. You ain't even call him an unlucky motherfucker. He's an unlucky person. Like that's.
Yeah, I can't call him a motherfucker. You know what I mean? But I just think that this is a tricky situation for a young quarterback to be in. You know what I mean? If it was the other way around, Nick Foles don't seem to really, nothing is too big for Nick Foles. You know what I mean? He win the Super Bowl, everything is okay. Like, you know what I mean? As long as I got my door, I'm fine. You know what I mean? But Carson wanted this. He wanted this so bad, and for him to get hurt the way he did, and for him to have to sit back and watch the guy come back and play, I don't think Carson could have played better than Nick Foles in the playoffs. You know what I mean? So he got heavy shoes to fill, and I think that's extremely unlucky.
Okay, that's a very interesting pick. I'm very interested in hearing how Kelly feels about this.
I hate it so much. But I mean, when it comes down to it, though, the fact that he did get hurt, that's an extremely unlucky thing. The fact that he's going to have this in the back of his mind, with Nick Foles being the first quarterback to take Philly to a Super Bowl, having that in the back of your mind, it's very unlucky. But I think that history is going to look back on Carson Wentz as being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I mean, in his second season, he had an MVP-worthy performance before he got hurt. The future is so bright for this kid. He's got so much ahead of him that I think that it's extremely unfair to label him an unlucky motherfucker this early in his career just because of that one injury. He's got a Super Bowl ring, and a lot of the reason that Philly even went to the Super Bowl is because he propelled that team to that amazing start. And no doubt in my mind, he's going to start and win us a Super Bowl before his career is over, maybe even more than one. So it's way too early to call Carson Wentz an unlucky motherfucker. He's a fortunate motherfucker because he has got so much ahead of him, so much winning, so many good times, so many more rings.
Okay, yes, I definitely can see.
I think he won the Super Bowl, though. I think he won the Super Bowl because, I think the Eagles won the Super Bowl because Carson Wentz got hurt. You know what I mean? I think they heard so much negative publicity. I mean, when they received so much negative publicity after that Carson Wentz got hurt, they weren't even favored at home against Atlanta because of Carson Wentz. I think that gal.
Yes, so he lost Rashawn there, but he was explaining why he believes that Carson Wentz is an unlucky motherfucker. That's a very interesting pick right there. We're definitely going to get him back on the line before I have my response. One moment. All right, we are back. And Rashawn was saying that he actually believes the Eagles are better off because Carson Wentz got hurt and that Nick Foles had to be the quarterback for the playoffs. Can you further explain why?
Well, I think that they rallied behind everybody calling them, thinking that they were the underdog. When in actuality, the Eagles probably were the best team throughout the entire year. Throughout the entire year. But only when Carson Wentz got hurt, everybody turned their back on them. Not the fans of Philadelphia. There ain't some fans in Philadelphia. Like, oh my God, we ain't not going to win. I even thought that. But then I recognized what Nick Foles could do. I remember what Nick Foles can do. You know, and I thought that Doug Peterson was a good enough coach to put him in positions to win. I think the fact that they rallied behind all the negative press that came after that, you know, oh, they can't win without Carson Wentz, and I think it galvanized the team. You know, in that Super Bowl ring, they got a phrase on it, we all we need. And, you know, inside the Super Bowl ring is an underdog mask. They wouldn't have won an underdog. They wouldn't have had underdog mask had Carson Wentz not gotten hurt. You know, they galvanized them because of all the people turning their backs on them. You know, basically saying that their season was over when Carson Wentz got hurt. You know, and I think that's the reason they won the Super Bowl. Had Carson Wentz not gotten hurt, they probably would have made it to the Super Bowl. I don't think they would have won. You know what I mean? But we never know. I just think that when something like that happens, you know, other players step up their game, and I think that's what happened. You know, I think that's what happened, and that's the reason why I think that, you know, that probably was the best thing for Eagle fans, you know, because we got a Super Bowl out of it. You know what I mean? So, unfortunately for Carson, I just think he was unlucky.
I just want to remind you, Rashawn, that, you know, when you talk about all these people turning their back on the Eagles, that Kelly Kells was there behind them the entire time when I said that we were going to win the Super Bowl before the season even started, when everybody was saying, oh, Carson's hurt, the season is over, we're never going to make it now, one and done in the playoffs. Kelly Kells stood behind that team and shouted to everyone that would listen. We were talking about the Nick Foles that threw 7 touchdowns in one game, who has his stuff in the Hall of Fame because he is that caliber quarterback. And I said we were going to win it for Carson. We were going to win it for the city. We were going to win it for all of the players that got hurt. Jason Peters, Darren Sproles, Maragos, all of them. I stood behind that team. And the Philadelphia Eagles, including Carson Wentz, are extremely lucky motherfuckers because they've got fans like me standing behind them.
I do remember you shouting to everyone that would listen about how the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl. I believe you gave a very impassioned speech. It might have been on Courtney's show that I remember. And I was like, man, she took me to church just now. I was like ready to put in a collection plate after she made that speech. So I definitely remember that, Kelly. You will always have that credit of being one of the people who never lost faith. But it's a very interesting pick.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the fence. I can see where Rashawn's coming from, how it's very unlucky to be the guy.
I try to shock people from time to
time. You definitely do that. So, like I said, I can see it from both sides. I can see where Rashawn's coming from, how it is unlucky to get hurt after leading the team so well. And I still believe he should have won MVP over Tom Brady. But when he gets hurt and then you have the backup lead the team to the Super Bowl and win, it has to be a very bittersweet feeling to have that happen, right? So I definitely can see where Rashawn is coming from and also where Kelly is coming from, that he has such a bright future in front of him that it's hard to call him unlucky. So now let's move on to it's my number 2 time. It's time for me to do my number 2 pick. Yes, so we need to go ahead and get this started right here. Hold on one moment. All right, so now it's time for me to do my number 2 unluckiest motherfucker in sports history. Had a little phone difficulty. You guys heard some of that because I forgot to press pause on the recorder. So you guys heard me calling people back. It's all right, though. It's all in the transparency of the podcast. So you guys know that we having phone difficulty. And Rashawn suggested I need to move another spot in the house. Maybe I do. I need to find it out. I'm still trying to figure out this the best sound spot I got so far that I've done it at. So, but we'll figure it out. We're going to get it all together. But for my number 2 unluckiest motherfucking sports, I got another tie. You guys are going to recognize these names. Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Reggie Miller, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Sean Kemp, Penny Hardaway, and some other guys that I'm not mentioning right now. All stars of the 90s in the NBA, and all do not have championships. Because of Michael Jordan, and Akeem Olajuwon as well. Let's not forget about him. He did his thing in those 2 years where Mike was gone, or a year and a half where Mike was gone. Akeem Olajuwon came through and took advantage. Now, all these players, great Hall of Famers, and have had great careers. Charles Barkley, 11-time All-Star, one of the greatest rebounders in history, averaged over 20 points per game for his career. Patrick Ewing, greatest New York Knick of all time, maybe. Reggie Miller, Mr. Indiana Pacer. When you think the Pacers, you think of Reggie Miller. Karl Malone, second leading scorer in NBA history. John Stockton, the leading assist guy and steals guy in NBA history. Sean Kemp, known as one of the greatest dunkers of all time, was on that great 96 Sonics team. Penny Hardaway, an unlucky guy, somebody who could probably be on one of these lists as well when you think about injuries and things that happened to his career. But at a time in the 90s, he was great and did not get a championship, all because of number 23. And like I said, Akeem Olajuwon as well. And it's just unlucky because these guys, if they play in any other era, maybe they get championships. Right? But we don't know. Maybe they play in the 80s, maybe they don't get past the Celtics or don't get past the Lakers. If they play today, do they get past LeBron? Do they get past the Warriors? There's always going to be somebody there that's keeping others down. But it seems like today is a little different because it's more of a team that's keeping players down than that one player. In the 80s, you had Magic and Bird. And, of course, they were on great teams. But it was those two guys who people couldn't get past until Isaiah did it. With, of course, the Pistons. But in the 90s, it just seemed like the Bulls just had this stranglehold on the league. And all these great players suffered because of it. And didn't get championships. And their legacies will always be as great players without championships. And, of course, Charles Barkley, because he's on TV every week, is the one who gets it the most. Every time they have an argument, Shaq got to remind him that he got 3 rings or 4 rings. And that Shaq has none. Check my rings, Shaq. Google me, Chuck. Google me. You know my stats. 3-time Finals MVP. What you got, Chuck? And even though that has nothing to do with the argument they're having, he's going to throw that down and try to win the argument. And Chuck, of course now, can't do anything about it. He's too old. And because of Michael Jordan, he doesn't have that championship ring. How do you feel about that pick, Kelly?
I mean, I actually like it, and I think you could also put anybody that's playing in this current era on that list. I mean, we've seen 4 straight finals where it's the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think you could name every single basketball player that doesn't play for those teams. But, I mean, is that unlucky motherfucker, or is that just the way that sports crumble?
That's a very good point. Maybe that's just the way basketball is. Like, basketball has never had great parity. They've always had competition, right? And I think last year was one of those years where we lacked competition. That's why people were so upset about Kevin Durant joining Golden State. But I do feel like in Jordan's era, it felt different. Like, you just knew Jordan was going to win. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
Damien, for the second damn time, you done stole my thunder, boy. I wasn't going to name Patrick Ewing and all of them. I was going to name Charles Barkley, and I'm still going to name Charles Barkley as my number 1 pick because I can further elaborate on what you already said, but I think that is great. You know what I mean? All of those guys fell because of Michael Jordan. All of them. You know what I mean? Like, all those guys you named, Sean Kemp and Gary Payton, they were great for years. They finally made it to the finals, going in 16. You know what I mean? And, Barkley and Phoenix, going in 6 games. Utah twice. In 98, they had home court advantage, going in 6 games. That's the difference, I believe, in LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan in his ring, nobody has won more championships than him. In LeBron James' ring, you got D-Wade with 3, LeBron has 3. You know what I saying? You got Steph with 3. LeBron has 3. Kevin Durant ain't done yet. You know what I mean? So I just felt like, that's one of the arguments I go when people say that Jordan and LeBron, like, LeBron really did dominate his era. Statistically, he did, but as far as winning, he did. So, Damian, I think that was a great pick. But I'll further elaborate on Charles Barkley because that's my number 1 pick.
Okay, definitely. And not to make this a LeBron Jordan thing, but just to say something about LeBron, I think there's no way we can say that Jordan played against the teams of the quality that LeBron played against. You think about those Spurs teams, these Warriors teams. These teams, I believe, are much better than any of the teams Jordan faced in the finals. With all due respect to the Utah Jazz, Byron Russell isn't Kevin Durant. He didn't have Kevin Durant sticking him, or he didn't have Kawhi Leonard sticking him. Byron Russell. Now, of course, the 96 Sonics were really good. Gary Payton was sticking them. Gary Payton's a point guard. He was their best perimeter defender. But he still, was Defensive Player of the Year that year. But none of those teams had 4 All-Stars like the Warriors. Or none of those teams were just dominant like that 2014 Spurs team was. So I think it's unfair to say that's the difference between Jordan. I still have Jordan number 1. Like last week with my dad on the show, we did our top 10 players of all time. I still had Jordan number 1. But it's not because of him winning championships and not letting anyone else win during the 90s. It's because of his all-around game that I believe is underrated now. But like I said, I don't want to make it into a LeBron Jordan episode. It is the Unlucky Motherfuckers episode. And those two are lucky motherfuckers. So we're going to leave them out this one. So it's time for us to get into our number 1 unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history. Who you got, Kelly?
All right. My number 1 unluckiest motherfucker in sports history, I promised you guys a tennis player, and it's also going to be the only girl on this list, if you can call girls motherfuckers, and that would be none other than poor big sister, Venus Williams. And I know a lot of you people are saying, well, she's like one of the greatest tennis players of all time. No, she ain't unlucky motherfucker. Well, first of all, her parents named her. Her full name is Venus Ebony Star Williams. Star. She's not even the star of her family, and she's got Star as one of her middle names. But poor Venus Williams, if you look at how her career went, she started on top of the world. Amazing. And then in 2003, she had her first major injury. She injured her abs. And then also that same year, her sister, obviously not Serena, her other sister, was murdered. She had a sister that was gunned down in Compton, shot to death. That's pretty unlucky motherfucker shit right there. But then that was the start of her career just being plagued by injuries. Once she started getting back into her form from that injury, in 2005 she injured her wrist. In 2010 she injured her knee. In 2011 she injured her hip. And all of these injuries, they took time for her to recover and to get back to being a championship tennis player. And then she came down with, I don't even know how you pronounce that disease she had. It's like Sjogren's syndrome, something of that nature. And it's an autoimmune disease, and it's really nasty stuff. Aside from making you extremely tired and giving you terrible muscle pain, it also makes, every part of your body dry. It makes your mouth constantly dry, constant cotton mouth, makes your eyes dry, you can't even cry. And you know what? If you're a girl, this disease, it even makes your vagina dry, alright? You got, constant dry lady area, and,
Man, that sounds horrible. I think we lost Kelly right there, but that sounds awful. Especially when she said the dry vagina. That's, ugh. We're going to go ahead and get Kelly back on the line so she can explain why Venus Williams, she has Venus Williams as the top unluckiest motherfucker in history. Alright, we are back, and Kelly was talking about how she believes Venus Williams is the unluckiest motherfucker in sports history. And she was talking about how she had this disease which messes up your immune system. It makes certain parts of your body dry, and for women, it can make your vagina dry, which is unlucky not only for her, but for any guy that's trying to mess around with her, if that's what's happening. So please continue to explain why you believe Venus Williams is the unluckiest motherfucker in sports history.
Well, yeah, I mean, Drive Vagina kind of summed it up right there. It's an unlucky thing because as a woman, if that ever happens to you, you feel extremely unattractive. It's bad for your self-esteem. It's just very unlucky. And then on top of all of these terrible symptoms that this disease that she has can give you, it also ups your chance later in life of getting lymphoma, which is a kind of cancer. So, I mean, on top of all the other unlucky motherfucker shit, she's going to be double unlucky if she comes down with that. It's a very high risk when you suffer from this disease. And then after that, her career was still plagued by even more injuries. And then she's also a member of the most unlucky motherfucker religion out there. She's such a hopeless witness. Like, I don't know if you know anything about what these guys believe, but they believe that there's only this tiny little list of like 200 people that get into heaven, and then after that, like, heaven's full. So even if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you believe you're unlucky enough pretty much to be damned because, you know, that list is probably already filled with people that died long before you did. You're not getting into heaven, so that's unlucky right there. And then, on top of all that, in 2017, she was in a car accident, which was not her fault, but she actually struck another car, and it killed the other driver of that car. She killed a 78-year-old man, not her fault. But that kind of shit, whether it's your fault or not, it sticks with you. It gets into your psyche. It fucks with your brain. So Venus Williams, on top of all this other unlucky shit that's happened, she's also got a younger sister that is considered one of the greatest female athletes of all time, and she's always going to be living in the shadow of her greater, prettier named sister, Serena. So that is a very unlucky lot in life. So I feel very sad for Venus Williams, and I consider her an unlucky bitch, because I don't really think it's right to call a woman a motherfucker. So she's an unlucky bitch.
Well, I guess a woman can be a motherfucker nowadays, you know. That is so I think it could go both ways. But yeah, I definitely agree with that pick. Especially when you broke down all the things that she's been through, you forget about all the injuries, fighting through that disease, the car accident. And the crazy thing is she's fought back from all that and come back to win majors. Like, even with Serena being so dominant, in the past few years, Venus has come back to be one of the top players in the world. So to come back from all that unlucky shit and come back to be one of the best players in the world at an advanced age in tennis, which is very hard to do. Tennis is very hard on your body, which is part of all the injuries she's had. So definitely an unlucky motherfucker, but a very determined motherfucker as well for Venus Williams. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
No, I think she had unlucky moments, but I wouldn't consider her an unlucky motherfucker. And females can be motherfuckers. Them motherfuckers are great. You know what I mean? But no, look, I mean, as a single, she won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Grand Slam, you know, titles. And as Grand Slam doubles with her sister, she won 14. She won 4 gold medals. You know what I mean? Listen, she has had some unlucky moments, like, you know, Kelly pointed out, her, you know, being hit from behind and her, you know, hitting somebody else and unfortunately killing somebody, and then, you know, her disease and injuries and stuff like that. But I wouldn't consider her unlucky. I would consider her more resilient because she was supposed to be the better of the two. And for a while, she was the better of the two. And I think that Serena used Venus as a measuring stick, and she obviously can afford it above her. You know, but I don't think it was nobody else in the world that she felt was her competition other than her sister. You know what I mean? So that tells you how great Venus was. You know, Venus was great. So I think that she had unlucky moments. I don't consider her unlucky at all because she will go down as the top 5 greatest tennis player of all time. You know what I mean?
But always below her sister and the greatest of all time.
Well, everybody's below her sister. I think she's the greatest female tennis player of all time. Arguably the greatest tennis player of all time. Obviously, a female can't beat a man. I don't think so at all. You know what I mean? I actually agree with what John McEnroe said about Serena Williams. If she was playing on the bench, so she would be ranked like 300. You know what I mean? Because they physically can't do the things that men do. And they don't play 5 sets, they play 3. You know what I mean? But I can't think of too many people better than her. You know, you got Martina, you got Steffi Graf, I guess you can go Billie Jean King. I never really saw her play, but the two people I've seen play, Martina Navratilova and Steffi Graf, I would think it's better than Venus. But other than that, it's Serena, obviously. Other than that, it's probably one more that I'm missing. You know what I mean? But I think that Venus is, top 5 all time.
Yeah, Venus is definitely up there, top 5, top 10 definitely. And you think about her, how she's dominated Wimbledon, like she might be the greatest grass player of all time. So she definitely has her highlights. But like Kelly mentioned, she won't be close to Serena, who is considered maybe the greatest tennis player period of all time, even though, you can't compare it to men because men just have a physical advantage. And I think when you talk about men and women, you have to put levels to it, right? Like, no, the best player in the WNBA can't beat, a bum in the NBA, but the best player in the WNBA will crush any regular guy. And we have to just break it down by levels. So you can't just, like, a professional basketball player, of course the man professional basketball player is going to beat the woman professional basketball player just because of physical gifts. But yeah, when you started breaking it down like that, man, she went through some stuff, man. So who you have as your number one? You already mentioned it, Charles Barkley. Why do you have Charles Barkley as your number one unluckiest motherfucker in sports history, Rashawn?
But because of all the things that you named, and a lot of things that I'm about to name, Charles Barkley got drafted a year after the Sixers finally won an NBA championship. He came to a team that literally had just won an NBA championship. I'm assuming that he thought that he would have a couple rings, you know what I mean, before the 90s ended. But 84, 85, he was a rookie. After that, 86, they traded away Moses Malone, who was the central piece as to why we won the championship in 1983. Because we were getting there with Dr. J and Bobby Jones and Andrew Tony and all those guys, but we were never getting over the hump. We added Moses Malone, we won the championship, 4-4, 4-4, 5-4, however you want to say it, we won. Charles Barkley gets drafted. I think that 6'4", 6'5", whatever you want to call it, is probably one of the greatest athletes that the NBA has ever seen, considering how big he was. You know what I mean? As far as weight-wise. Can jump out the gym, can run as fast as anybody, the determination. I think that the fact that he don't have an NBA championship undercut how great Charles Barkley was. But he had an owner in Harold Cat who did not want to pay anybody, who did not want to surround Charles Barkley with anybody. Just think about this. Charles Barkley been with the Sixers for 7 to 8 years. And the key free agent acquisition that Charles Barkley played with, that the Sixers got for him, was Rick Mahorn. Rick Mahorn, who was like the third or fourth wheel on the Detroit Pistons bad boy team. Rick Mahorn was the guy that they got for Charles Barkley, After that, Moses Malone retired. Andrew Toney had, injury problems with his ankles. He eventually cut his career short. Then Dr. J retired in 1987. Bobby Jones was well past his great days. Then you get left with that team that, I just mentioned, Johnny Dawkins, Ron Anderson, Rick Mahorn. Who the hell will win against Jordan and Pippen and the bad boys, Detroit? He goes to Phoenix, wins the MVP award that year, well deserved. Had one of the greatest game sevens of all time, against, Seattle, where he had 43 points, 24 rebounds, I believe. He absolutely took Sean Kemp, who, by the way, had about 4 or 5 inches of height on him, took him to school. But he played in the era of Michael Jordan and never won a championship. But before Michael Jordan was winning, you had to go through Boston. You had to go through Detroit. And Harold Cat, the owner of the Sixers, never surrounded Charles Barkley with the talent to get it done. I hate seeing Shaq clown Charles Barkley, for not having a ring. Shaq played with Kobe. Shaq had probably the greatest owner of all time in Jerry Buck. He had arguably the greatest GM of all time in the logo. I forget his name, off the top of my head.
Jerry West.
But, yeah. So Shaq can talk all the trash he wants. He never had to deal with what Barkley dealt with. And then the icing on the cake was with Draymond Green. He no sense to somebody comparing him to Charles Barkley. Draymond Green would never be Charles Barkley. Draymond Green can have his greatest game of all time, and it will be just a regular game for Barkley. You know what I mean? I think the fact that Charles Barkley never won a ring, the fact that Shaq always clowned him about it, you know what I mean? Nobody else get it like Shaq, and Damian, you pointed out. Panthers don't get it like Shaq, Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, none of them guys get it like Shaq do. Reggie Miller, like Charles do. And I think he is the most unluckiest man in sport, period. Because he's still visual. He's still on TV. He's still talking the game. You know what I mean? People think they look at him as a caricature. You know what I mean? They forget what he was. I think his legacy has taken a hit, and I don't think nobody in sports history is more unlucky than Charles Barkley. You know what I mean? So that's why I got him as number one.
I definitely agree with that pick. And when you talk about how he came the year after the 76ers won a championship, a lot of people on that team were a little older. So when he came, I think he came right at the worst spot when they were turning over from a team. They put everything into that 83 team to win the championship. A lot of veterans on that squad. He came that next year when they were turning over, and they never, like you said, gave him any help. So he was having these great years in Philadelphia, goes to Phoenix, has an awesome season. And also the year with the Rockets, you gotta remember that they could have made the finals in Houston, but John Stockton hits a game-winning jumper to push him out the playoffs in the Western Conference Finals. So he's definitely had some bad luck. Maybe that Houston team with Hakeem Olajuwon is the matchup that would have taken out the Bulls. We never know. The Bulls had no answer for Hakeem Olajuwon, even at that age. So maybe you would have won a championship then if John Stockton doesn't hit that game winner in the Western Conference Finals of 1997. He definitely had some bad luck. I hate when Shaq throws his rings in his face. Like you mentioned, Shaq has always had, during his prime years, another top 5, top 10 at most player on his team. Penny Hardaway was all NBA first team point guard. Kobe Bryant, probably top 11. I have him number 11 all time. Dwayne Wade, top 3, 4 shooting guard of all time. So he's always had someone to help him out. Shaq, of course, was an awesome player, one of the most dominant players of all time. But without that guard help, without that Robin, and sometimes Batman, I believe Dwayne Wade was more of a Batman when they won a championship. He doesn't have those championships without those guys. Charles Barkley never had someone like that on his team. Even in the Phoenix days, he had Kevin Johnson, but Kevin Johnson isn't Kobe, Dwayne Wade, Penny Hardaway. So I definitely agree with you there. How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
I actually kind of disagree with it, and the reason why is Charles Barkley has kind of made this reputation and this legacy over being notorious, being more infamous than famous. The fact that he's become pretty much like a professional villain, and the fact that he was, obviously, if we talk about the greatest basketball players of all time, it goes, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and we get into the Kobe's. But I mean, Charles Barkley is up there when it comes to some of the most talented basketball players of all times. And I think that he's made a career out of being the guy that you just absolutely love to hate. I mean, if you think back to the I Am Not a Role Model commercials, the fact that, he speaks his mind with such abandon as to what anybody's going to think about him, I think were he to have a championship ring, I think that it completely changes his public persona, and he's made that persona work for him so much. So I think that if he had won a championship, it would have changed everything about him, and he wouldn't be the Charles Barkley that we love to hate.
That's a very good point as well. That's a very good point. Now, the reason I agree with Sean is because of the no championship that he's always going to get that thrown in his face. But he is up there. He's probably top 20 all time when you really think about it. And the fact that he was at 6'5", able to do what he was doing at the power forward position, that takes incredible, blessings of, natural talent. But, man, he had some unlucky breaks, like we mentioned. But I can see why Rashawn would have him at number 1 as the unluckiest motherfucker in sports history. So now it's time for me to go to number 1. I don't think Rashawn's going to like this pick. Rashawn actually picked this guy on our last motherfucker show as one of the luckiest motherfuckers of all time. And I believe he's the unluckiest motherfucker of all time. You probably already know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Evander, the real deal, Holyfield. Now, so for Evander Holyfield, one of the greatest boxers of all time, maybe the greatest cruiserweight of all time, but a lot of people don't remember that part of his career because it was overshadowed by Mike Tyson, who was destroying the heavyweight division at that time. So he's always had someone over him as far as a shadow. Either it was Mike Tyson, Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis. It was always somebody overshadowing Evander Holyfield, no matter how great he was. So he goes through, destroys the cruiserweight division, moves up to heavyweight. He's waiting for Mike Tyson. He wants his shot at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson decides not to be disciplined, goes to Tokyo, and gets upset in the biggest upset of all time to Buster Douglas. So now Evander Holyfield, who's next in line, he didn't run for Mike Tyson. He was waiting for Mike Tyson. After Mike Tyson should have beat Buster Douglas, Evander Holyfield was the next fight. But because he lost, and then next thing you know, he's going to jail and whatnot, Evander Holyfield had to fight Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas got so fat and happy about his championship that he literally got fat. It came into the ring like 20, 30 pounds heavier than he did against Tyson. So not only does Evander Holyfield, he beats Buster Douglas, but he doesn't get credit for that because everybody's like, oh, Buster Douglas is out of shape. But then he continues to be a great heavyweight. He has these great fights with Riddick Bowe, beats George Foreman after he was winning championships at an old age, but he doesn't get credit for that because George Foreman was old. They say he beat an old Larry Holmes. It's not his fault he fought these guys at this point. And then he finally gets Mike Tyson. The first time they fight, beats Mike Tyson fair and square in a great fight. People forget about the first fight they had. It was an awesome match. Mike Tyson came out fast and furious, kind of knocked Evander Holyfield on his heels a little bit, but Evander adjusted, started bullying Mike, and people don't give credit to Evander Holyfield. They're saying Mike wasn't in his prime. Evander Holyfield is 4 years older than Mike Tyson. Evander Holyfield during that first fight was 34 years old. Mike Tyson was 30 in his physical prime. But because Mike Tyson wasn't the dominant guy he was during the 80s, people are like, oh, he wasn't in his prime anymore. And they don't give Evander Holyfield the credit. And a lot of people still have Mike Tyson rated over Evander Holyfield. And Holyfield beat the man twice. And all this unlucky stuff happened before he got a piece of his ear bit off. So his second fight against Mike Tyson gets so frustrated that he bites the man's ear and doesn't get disqualified the first time. No. You would think that would be the end of the fight. The referee was like, okay, you bit his ear. Crazy. But people paid for this fight. Let's try to continue it. They continue the fight. Mike Tyson knows he's about to lose. He's frustrated. Bites him again. And this time takes a chunk out the man's ear, which is still missing till this day. That was 20-something years ago. He still has to look in the mirror and be reminded every day that Mike Tyson bit a piece of my ear off. And then he goes on, boxes a little bit too long, but has a great career, but unfortunately doesn't take care of his money too well, goes bankrupt, and now is a promoter. Hopefully he does well in that. I'm going to try to get him on the show because his promotion is called The Real Deal. I'm going to try to, hey, I got the real deal, you the real deal, get you on the show. But I have him as the unluckiest motherfucker of all time in sports because he's always under somebody's shadow, no matter how great he was. When he finally gets to fight the guy whose shadow he's been under the whole time, beats him fair and square, the second time gets a piece of his ear bit off, and he still doesn't get credit because people say Mike Tyson was no longer in his prime even though he was 4 years younger. Come on, man. He never gets credit he deserves. Still rated under Mike Tyson by most boxing fans, even though he beat the man twice. Lost all his money, got some of it back, and now still working hard because he has got that debt. What's more unlucky than Evander Holyfield? How you feel about that pick, Kelly?
I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, when it comes to Evander Holyfield, all you gotta do is mention the ear biting, and you've got an unlucky motherfucker. Like you said, he's gotta look at himself every single day and be reminded of that. I mean, what kind of motherfucker bites a guy's ear off? I mean, when you have boxing as your profession, you expect to, like, you know, have a few little war wounds, but you still expect to have both your fucking ears. And Evander Holyfield doesn't even have that. And that right there makes him, I agree, 100% the most unlucky motherfucker in sports history.
So I know Rashawn's going to disagree with me. How you feel about that pick, Rashawn?
You know, I disagree with you, man. You know, crack me up when she said, you have both your ears. Listen, I think that he is one of the luckiest motherfuckers. He fought a whole listen, Mike Tyson wasn't Mike Tyson when he fought him. You know, he got lucky because Mike Tyson didn't prepare for the fight against Buster Douglas. He got lucky that Mike Tyson was falsely accused, in my opinion, of rape and went to jail for 3 years. He got lucky when he fought an overweight Buster Douglas to win the championship. You know what I mean? He got lucky when he fought an overweight, been out of shape Riddick Bowe, you know what I mean, the second and third time, you know. Listen, he's been extremely lucky throughout his career. You know, no great it wasn't no really great heavyweight after that. You know, after he fought Riddick Bowe, really wasn't no great heavyweight after that. He had to fight George Foreman, who was 777 years old. He couldn't knock him out. You know, I think Evander Holyfield has been extremely lucky. I think he's been extremely lucky. Sort of like the Clipboard and Lennox Lewis. He never fought Lennox Lewis.
He did. He did. He fought Lennox. Yeah, they lost, right? They had a draw, and I believe he lost the second time.
Oh man! Well, you go. You know what I mean? And Lennox Lewis wasn't even in his prime at the time. He was Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield was probably was obviously older than me. I just always thought that he was extremely lucky. And listen, you know me. I don't like people because of that name. I hate Draymond Green because his name was Draymond. I hate Evander because his name is Evander. What the hell is Evander? I hated Evander because he kept for so long. And Damien, I know you agree with this one. He struggled to cut his hair off. He kept for so long. Like, I mean, it wasn't even like, you know, pit right. You know what I mean? It wasn't brush right like George Jefferson. George Jefferson, he had a beautiful ball, but his hair was cool. His hair was cool. And then the Holyfield hair was all messed up, and he kept it for as long. It took him years to cut his head bald. When he was going bald, like 10 years prior to that. You know what I mean? But, you know, we've been for the band, but I think he was a great boxer. I just don't think he was as great as everybody thinks he is.
Okay, so the hair thing. Of course, you know, I'm a big advocate of people cutting off their hair when it's time. You know, that's unlucky too. My man, that's another unlucky thing. My man was in his 20s when he started going bald. That's unlucky. Okay? And the fact that his name is Evander, that's unlucky. Like, some of the things that you mentioned are unlucky things. And that's why he's the unluckiest motherfucker in sports history. But man, it's been a great show. Definitely got to get you guys to recap your list real quick. Kelly, can you please recap your list of your 5 unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history?
Okay, well, of course, I have Lance Armstrong between the testicular cancer and the fact that he was the most hated athlete in sports, even though everyone in bicycling was doping, just like he was caught up, and the fact that he had the $5 million lawsuit, that made him my number 5 unluckiest motherfucker. And then from there, I had Laramie Tunsil, of course, with the double hacks of his social media accounts. The marijuana one, of course, costing him millions of dollars as he fell down the draft board. A very bad relationship with his stepfather and a mother who was extremely poor that forced him to borrow money from a coach, which violated NCAA rules, makes Laremy Tunsil an extremely unlucky motherfucker. And then, like, I think I'm starting to have, like, maybe some kind of sibling rivalry problem here. Like, I don't have sibling rivalry, but, like, that was the first thing that came into my head with these other picks. So, of course, Tiki Barber, who retired right before his team went on to win the Super Bowl against the Patriots, and then, of course, with his little bit older twin brother winning a ring with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers shouldn't have even gone to the Super Bowl because it should have been the Philadelphia Eagles after they won the last game in the bet. But anyway, I digress. And then I go to Leangelo Ball, who is an unlucky motherfucker simply because he's related to the Ball family. The fact that he was undrafted, was unlucky enough to get caught shoplifting in China, was unlucky enough to be ridiculed by President Trump. And then, of course, there was Venus Williams with her history of terrible injuries, her autoimmune disease, which causes dryness in every part of the body, including your very personal lady area, which you never want to have dry. Believe me, ladies, the men like it wet, so you don't want to get that Venus Williams disease. And then, of course, always overshadowed by her younger sister, makes her the unluckiest motherfucker on my list.
That's a very good list right there. And yeah, I didn't notice that theme of sibling rivalry that you had there. That's a very good list. Can you please recap your list for the people, Rashawn?
My number 5 was Andy Roddick. He just came along, amongst other great, tennis players. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, who came a little bit after Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic. There was a couple other guys, but those are Andy Murray. Those are the 4 guys that basically derailed Andy Murray's career. Bo Jackson, for obvious reasons, his injuries derailed his career. Mildred Taylor, his rule robbery at the end of Richard Still with like 2 seconds left in the 12th round, where he clearly was going to be Julio Cesar Chavez and end of his first law. Carson Wentz, because of his injury and the fact that he had to watch a backup quarterback win the Super Bowl MVP, and it was the Eagles' first ever Super Bowl in his team history. And number 1, Charles Barkley. For being drafted by the defending NBA champions, never getting, adequate players to compete in the Eastern Conference, which was the beast at that time. And he getting, basically crushed for that, right now because he's on TV, for not having a championship ring. So those are my 5. Andy Roddick, Bo Jackson, Mildred Taylor, Carson, and Charles Barkley.
Another very good list. It's a very competitive list of unlucky motherfuckers from both of you guys. For my list, number 5, Chris Paul. When you think about all the injuries and the untimely time of those injuries that came for him and his teammates during playoff runs. Number 4, all the quarterbacks who have ever started for the Cleveland Browns since they were reintroduced to the NFL in 1999. Not going to go through the list again, but there's a lot of motherfuckers that are unlucky for being on that team. Number 3, Benjamin Button himself, Greg Oden. Came out the womb, looked like he was 147, and his bones were like they were 147, and that's the reason his career was so short. And number 3. Number 2, all the 90s stars in the NBA who don't have a championship because of Michael Jordan and the Hakeem Olajuwon. So Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, John Stockton, just name a few. Number 1, Evander Holyfield. My man is still missing a piece of his ear. That's some unlucky shit. So I definitely want to thank you guys for being on the show. Remember, if you're listening to the show, please vote for whose list you think is the best of the unluckiest motherfuckers in sports history. Great show, man. I don't know who to vote for, honestly. Even the fact that I was on the show, I don't know who you should vote for. Very good list. And Kelly, can you please tell people where to find you on social media?
Of course, you can find me on Twitter and Facebook. I'll spell my name because it's super weird. I'm an unlucky motherfucker in that way that nobody knows how to spell my name. But it's KELLIERUTTAR. And of course, you can find our show, The Red Zone Live, with Kelly and Rashawn on Twitter and Facebook at The Red Zone Live. And you can catch us every Friday night from 7 to 9 or on demand anytime on our sponsor website, goingfor2.com.
Yes. Listen, follow, do that. Rashawn, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me at BabyBlack1977 on Twitter, and Rashawn Reed, RESHANREVDES on Facebook. And I consider myself a lucky motherfucker because I get to work with the beautiful Kelly Kell, who has the band, who has the voice, and will cuss your ass the hell out if you go in. You know what I mean? So I consider myself a lucky motherfucker.
Definitely. I also consider myself one lucky motherfucker that you guys are always willing to give me a little time out your day to come on the episode when I give the opportunity to say the word motherfucker a lot. You guys are always eager to do that, so I appreciate that. Also, make sure you follow me at The Real Deal WDA. If you enjoyed this episode, follow me on all social platforms at The Real Deal WDA. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to The Real Deal with Damian Adams on Apple Podcasts. Leave that 5-star rating at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That 5-star rating will definitely be appreciated. And until next time, go real, motherfucker, or go home, motherfucker.